similarly, I hope there's no one from Ryanair here tonight, because this is a screenshot from Ryanair's website in July last year. And like other airlines, when Ryanair, when you buy a flight from them, they'll try and upsell you some car rental or hotel booking or travel insurance, except rather than upselling you, last year Ryanair would just add it to your basket, and they would hide the option for taking that out of your basket in this menu, which is actually the drop down for choosing what country you're from, which is kind of difficult to find, right? So I'm sure that this made them a lot of money because people couldn't find it, but we think it's pretty unethical, and we feel like designers have a responsibility to use their skills and knowledge to do things to help people rather than to exploit them to make money out of them. So that's an example of a dark pattern. They're techniques used to convince someone to do something that they wouldn't normally do if they knew what they were really agreeing to, and they exploit quirks of the human mind so that one person can benefit from another person's expense. And they exist just because they're effective. That's the basis of it. I'm Neil, and this is Christina, and today we're going to talk to you about how we can identify a dark pattern even in your own work, if you've done it perhaps by accident. We're going to look at some common examples and how you can suggest some alternatives you could replace them with that are more ethical. And then we're going to talk about why we think that dark patterns aren't sustainable or something that you should go ahead and use. So first of all, how do we identify dark patterns? How do we tell just like a normal and acceptable, honest way of persuading someone to do something from something deceptive? Well, the fact is, it's a grey area. You're not going to agree with your partner on what is or is not a dark pattern. It's really subjective, but there are some tools we can use to help us start to ask the right questions so we can make a more informed decision. First of all, if you're considering whether or not something is a dark pattern, ask yourself, does it seem like it was deliberate? Hanlon's razor is a rule that says that if you encounter an unpleasant situation, it's probably much more likely that it was just an accident. It was a mistake, something they hadn't really thought about, rather than a deliberate attempt to deceive you into doing something. Anyone who's used a bit of poorly designed software can attest to this and how often it happens. We think that dark patterns are not mistakes, they're calculated. Someone's done that on purpose to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do. So let's think about that Ryanair example where they hid that travel insurance option in the drop down. Does that seem like something someone would have done by mistake? Would you file no travel insurance with the country where you came from? We don't think so. So think first test, it's dark. Here's an example of a website where you can personalize some gifts, and they've got reviews, and you can sort the reviews by relevance and date and the rating that was given. But rating actually only sorts from like 5 stars down to 1, and when you look at it, there are 63 pages of reviews. So probably on page 63, there's going to be a few 1-star reviews. It doesn't seem like they did this on purpose. They probably just thought they were doing a good thing by simplifying the number of sort options. So is this like a dark pattern? They've gone out of their way deliberately to deceive us into not finding this stuff? Here I think it's just a mistake. And then it's what we call an anti-pattern. It's like it's the same kind of outcome, but arrived at for a different reason. Next, we're going to talk about the principles of persuasive design technology, and these are some guidelines which kind of outline the aspects of a persuasive technology, something that is being honest and open about its view and the view it wants you to take, rather than kind of deceiving you into doing something you wouldn't want to do. There are about 8 of these. We're just going to look at 3 to see how they can help us identify dark patterns. So first of all, if the outcome of the technique were achieved without technology, would you accept it? So if you're sitting over a desk from a Ryanair representative and he's selling you some flights and he adds them onto your bill, and then you look at the bill and there's travel insurance on there that you didn't ask for, and you're like, I didn't ask for that, can you take it off? And he's like, yeah, no. And you're like, how do I do it? He's like, I'm not going to tell you. You wouldn't stand for it. If it's not acceptable without the technology, then it shouldn't be acceptable with the technology. So Ryanair feels this first example. Next, would the people who put that pattern into use take responsibility for it? Something they'd be proud of? Can you imagine a Ryanair spokesperson standing up and being like, yeah, we hid it in that drop down so you can find it? and we made loads of money, and we don't regret it. It's not something they would admit to in public. Next, have they used misinformation to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do? Well, almost definitely. They're benefiting here from somebody not understanding that something's been added to their basket and not understanding how to remove it from their basket. So yeah, your misunderstandings help them out. Here's an example though of how a deception, which the persuasive principles help us to identify, can perhaps actually be for your own benefit. This is a screenshot from a ride-sharing app where someone who doesn't have a car can ask someone else to take them somewhere they need to go. And in the final step of the process, you get this map and it shows where you're going to get picked up from and where you want to go. When in user testing, Dan Turner, who recently wrote an article about this, noticed that people who got to this step were spending more time on the step than they were on the previous steps, and they were confused. And when questioned afterwards, they said that they expected there to be a route plotted between the 2 points. Dan Turner and his team had actually deliberately left the route off because the research told them that most of the time it was wrong. The drivers who pick you up aren't going to just drive in a straight line between where you pick you up and where you want to go, because they're going out to drop their kids off at school or to go to the supermarket. They're working you into their schedule. So they thought a line would be it would be a deception, it would be a lie. However, they tested it. They did another round of testing where they introduced this line, this kind of placebo route, and found that people were spending about the same amount of time on the screen. They weren't lingering over it. They weren't confused anymore. And actually, afterwards, when they were asked about it, they knew that it wasn't the actual route. So it seems like this lie, white lie as he puts it, actually made people more comfortable. It reassured them that what they were doing was right. So he began to question, where's the line between a white lie, something that I'm doing to improve the person's experience, to make them more comfortable, and just a plain old lie which is designed to be for my benefit, not yours. And he has he's drafted some heuristics to try and help us identify that point, and I encourage you all to go and read the article and give him some feedback on those. We're going to talk about just a few again to see how these can help us identify a deception that is for your own good. So, assuming the deception is a white lie, it's something that's there to help you out, does it increase your effectiveness? Does it reduce the number of steps, or make you less confused, or reduce distractions? Well, in Ryanair's example, it adds a step. If you notice that it has added something to your basket, you're going to be confused, and then there's going to be a distraction while you try to work out how the hell you're going to take it out of your basket because they've hidden the option. So it doesn't seem so far like it's for your benefit. Does it tell you what's going on and make it clear how you can move forward? No, because they've hidden the option for removing it, and they've kind of hidden the fact that they've added it to your basket in the first place. Does it move the user towards their desired outcome? Well, it moves the user towards Ryanair's outcome, their goal of selling more travel insurance, but it doesn't really move the user towards their goal of just getting some flights. So we can see how this deception doesn't really seem to have been done for our benefit. It seems to be for their benefit. Next, there's a chart we can use to plot the different parties where who benefits from a particular technique. And designer in this case, like it's Ryanair, it's not the individual who put the design together, but it's the company who's using it in their process. This was made by Chris Nodder, and he identified 4 categories. The first is charitable, and these are things like international aid funds or disease research charities, and of course this really benefits society. It's for a greater good, and the user gets a little bit of benefit out of it because they get that warm fuzzy feeling from knowing that they've helped out. Next is motivational design, and this is where you'll find techniques used in like fitness tracking apps or food logging apps, things where the designer is trying to motivate you to do something that you wouldn't normally do on your own. So here the user gets most of the benefit, the designer gets a bit of benefit from money returns and things like that. Society benefits a little bit from having people who are happier and fitter and more able to go about their lives. Next comes commercial design, and this is probably what most of us are familiar with. It's where the designer is making a living from a service that they provide to the user. The user gets gets that service in return. It's kind of a fair exchange of goods. Society benefits from the kind of flow of commerce and things going smoothly in that regard. Then we come to evil design, and this is where the designer is benefiting disproportionately with the user. The user's getting a very small, if any, benefit, and we'd expect to see this like in a pyramid scheme or like a gambling website. So let's think about Ryanair, okay? Again, we can say for sure the designer's benefiting from this because just by looking at it we know some people are going to miss it. Ryanair's making a lot more money than they would if they were trying to sell you travel insurance, honestly. The user definitely gets a little bit of benefit because they get travel insurance, right? It's a wise thing to invest in before you go off on holiday, and you'll really be happy if you got it when the worst happens. But the way that it's been sold and the trouble you have to go to get rid of it if you don't want it, it really diminishes the returns. So if we plot Ryanair on the graph, you can see that it mimics the evil end of the spectrum the most. Okay, so how do we identify a dark pattern? As I said, you're going to disagree. It's a great area, but there's some things we can ask ourselves. Think about the motivations behind things to help you make the right decision. First of all, was it deliberate? It might have just been a silly mistake. It's just something somebody hasn't thought about. So try and rule that out first of all. Next, have a look at the persuasive principles. Does it seem like they've tried to be honest about what they want you to do, and giving you good reasons, or does it seem like they're really covering up what they want so that you feel like you're getting something else out of it? If they have used deception to move you along, have they done that really to make you to reassure you or to help you with an otherwise confusing or distracting task? And then finally, try and plot it as to who benefits from the use of that technique, because you might find that it's kind of weighed in one place more than another. So now that we know a little bit about how to recognize a dark pattern, we're going to show you some common examples and suggest some alternatives.
Yeah, so I'm going to present you some common examples of dark patterns and give you some concrete ways of how to still achieve similar goals, but being honest and without using evil design. So a first example of dark pattern is Roach Motel. This is the case of all those kind of interfaces that make it very easy for you to create an account or to subscribe to a service, but then it makes your life very hard to stop paying the service or to just close your account. Just to clarify, this is an example from ASOS. The way that you can create the account is very easy because you just click on one of your social networks, so it's just one click and your account is created. But then if one day you decide to close your account, that's not that easy anymore. Because the explanation of how to close your account is hidden in the support pages, so it's really hard for you to find the explanation of how to do it. And once you find the explanation, your life is still hard because you need to phone the call center to go speak with the customer service, and you need to provide them with a lot of information that it was never required in the first place when you created the account. There's actually this website, it's called justdelete.me. It's a very nice website because it lists a lot of services and social networks. And for each of them, it tells you how easy, hard, or sometimes it's actually impossible to close your account on them. So just take a look, it's quite fun to know. Of course, closing an account is even more important when there is money involved. So this is another example where this dark pattern were used on Audible. I don't know if any of you had troubles with this service. I see some people nodding, so I guess you did. But basically, actually they recently changed the interface, so they're not that evil anymore. But up to some time ago, the journey of the user would start with this button that tells you, get my free audiobook. So everything seems pretty cool. You get your free audiobook, okay. But actually, then the journey becomes that you are not just downloading an audiobook, but you are actually subscribing to their service. So once you realize that, then if you want to cancel your membership, you're redirected to this page. So you can change your plan, Or you can cancel it with this very big button that you see at first glance, which says cancel membership, so everything seems cool. The other problem is that once you click on it, Audible still tries to keep you as their user by offering you a very good deal for another month. If you do accept that deal, and then you decide again to cancel your membership, when you come back to this page, that button has disappeared. So the only way to actually unsubscribe is to again call the customer service and wait a lot on the line and so on. So this is definitely a dark pattern. Now, as designers, how can we still retain as many users as possible without using anything like this? Well, one ethical way of going about it is something like this. For example, this is a screenshot from Code Academy, in which it's very easy to delete your account. You go on your profile and there is a page designated to just delete your account. You go here, pretty straightforward. However, this is not convincing, this is not making you change your mind, right? Because once you get to this page, you've made your mind up and there is nothing to stop you. So something that can help you is adopting a slightly different approach. So this is taken from change.org. And you can see already the page is more personalized because it takes your Facebook picture, so it's already made more emotional and you get straightforward that it's something related to you. Plus, there is the use of the principle called loss aversion. This means that we tend to overestimate the losses that come from a change of our status. So you can see here, change.org tells you that if you close the account, you're going to lose all your friendships, contacts, and so on. So once again, you might think twice before closing the account because you don't want to lose all the stuff that you've built up in time. Also, of course, it's made even worse by the fact that it tells you you can't recreate the same account, the account with the same email address. Another strategy is using the tailoring principle, which means provide the user with information that is customized to their profile. This is lynda.com, which is a portal that provides online courses and webinars. When you decide to stop your membership with them, you are redirected to this page. So the clever thing about it is that they show you the latest courses that have been added to the portal. But they don't just show you the latest courses in general. They show you the courses that they know you are most likely to be interested in because they are based on all the courses that you've undertaken previously. So again, you arrive to this page, you want to unsubscribe, and then all of a sudden you see, oh, look, there is a new course and it interests me, so I might just stay for another month. But then if you do want to cancel the subscription, there is the button and you don't need to call any customer center or anything. So again, this is an ethical way of retaining users without using dark patterns. Moving on to another example, there is sneak into basket. This happens when users go on an e-commerce, they want to purchase an item, and then when they go through the checkout process, that they find in their basket something that they never selected before. An example that you might be familiar with is sportsdirect.com, in which when you select an item, everything seems to work fine at first because you have the pop-up appearing there and you see your item, okay, everything is fine. But then once you move on to the basket, you notice that actually something magically appeared here. So there is this magazine and a free mug that is added, and it's only £1, but still is a pound that you never agreed to pay. And you might notice it if you only have one item in the basket, but imagine you have a long list and there is an extra item added, you might not notice. And once you receive it at home, you don't really want to spend your time claiming £1 back. So Sports Direct is making money just sneaking items into the user's basket. So as designer, we often want people to buy more than what they originally wanted to buy. how can we achieve that? Well, a very simple solution is to the use of sale. Sale uses the principle of urgency, which means if we suggest users a very good deal for a short amount of time, people will end up buying more than what they originally planned for, because they are scared that if they don't buy, they will miss out, basically. It's a very simple principle, and it's used also in interfaces like this one. At the top, you can see there is a countdown. This means that you only have that amount of time to buy tickets before the price of the tickets increases. So once again, you feel the pressure and you need to make a decision fast, and often that decision is buy the tickets. A similar approach is to use the principle of scarcity. So it's not an offer limited in time, but it's a limited offer in the sense that there are only a few products. So with Amazon, you have that when the interface highlights you how many items are left in stock. So in this case, you have only one item, and again, you don't want to miss out, so you buy before it's sold out. Another principle is to put prices in context. So basically, when we see the price of an object, our perception depends on the context around it. This screenshot is taken from the Apple website. Imagine that you decide to buy this iPhone and you are already spending £460. And then, along the way of the checkout process, the interface suggests you, why don't you also buy a case for your new iPhone? And the price is £25. Now, if you had seen the case as the first item and you had seen that it was £25, you might think that it's actually quite expensive. But now you compare it to the original price that you are paying anyway, which is £460. So adding £25 on top of that doesn't seem that much anymore, and you're more likely to actually buy also that second item that you were not originally planning to buy. Okay, so I originally showed you the example from Sports Direct, but actually the dark pattern sneak into basket is used also in other contexts. So this is a service for parking in airport, and when you go through the checkout process to pay for the service that you want, this is automatically added to your basket, so it's 9p for a charity. So it could be that we are less annoyed compared to what happens with Sports Direct, because it's only 9p, so it's not that much, and it's for charity, okay? But then again, do we really want this checkbox to be preselected, or do we want to have the freedom to decide whether to donate or not? So there are better ways of still getting people to donate without forcing them. An example that is shown here is taken from Pennies, which is an application used when people buy by credit card. This works basically when you are paying your amount. The application asks you if you want to donate some, if you want, basically it rounds up to the next pound, the total that you are due to pay. And the difference would go to a charity. So in this case, the total that you are due is £2.80, and you're asked if you want to donate 20p. So it's not that much. And the reason why this works is that often this would appear after you have a nice evening out in a restaurant, for example. So you are in a good mood, you need to pay, and since you are in a good mood and you're asked to donate to charity, you are more likely to actually go for it, rather than if you're stressed or you're in a rush. The other reason why it works is that we like to have order in our lives. So paying £3 actually is better than £2.80 in our mind, because it's a round number. And the other reason why this works is social pressure, because you are presented with this and there is a waiter standing by next to you, and even though you don't know the waiter, you don't want the waiter to think bad of you. Right, another example is to use the principle of reciprocity. This works when designer gives something to the user beforehand, and then the user feels obliged to give something back to the designer. So this is an example from the British Red Cross that was sending out these letters before Christmas. And together with the request to donate money, British Cross was sending out stuff like coasters, bookmarks, pens, and so on. So you receive this at home and you kind of feel that British Red Cross is already giving something to you and is just asking for a donation back. So you are more likely to accept and actually give them money. Okay, another example of a dark pattern is disguised adverts. This is the case of all those advertisements that appear on websites, and they look like something, like another element of the page. An example is taken from the eDreams website. So the two boxes on the right are adverts, and the boxes on the left are actually preview of articles that belong to the website itself. Of course, if you look carefully, you can tell the difference, but at the first glance, they look quite similar, and some people might mistake the two adverts for another article, and they wouldn't realize that they're linking to something outside. But this principle is used also in a more clever way, like in this case, the banner at the top uses a look and feel very similar to all the rest of the website. And even the copy on the button is consistent with the copy of the website itself. So people might end up clicking on the free download button, thinking that it's part of the website itself, and they are actually clicking on an advert. So if we, and another clever way that this works is when adverts use a copy that we are used to read in other services that we use on a daily basis. Like in this case here at the bottom, you see you have one new message. So we are used to see this in messaging system or emails. So when we read that, our attention is automatically caught, and it takes us a while to understand it's actually an advert. This works also offline. This photo is taken from a road near where I live. And there is this billboard on the side of the road. When you're driving, you're paying attention, of course, to the task you are undertaking, which is driving. So you pay attention to other cars, other traffic signs, and your attention is caught by danger slow down, because it looks like something you could actually find along the road. And we are naturally inclined to pay attention to cues that refer to food, sex, or danger. So danger slow down in red, we look at it, and then we actually realize that this is an advert for a garage that is just behind the corner. So I don't know if the intent was actually to cause more accidents so they have more clients, or I don't know, but anyway, it's quite evil. Right, so this is an example of how to kind of achieve the same without creating accidents. So it's a billboard from TomTom that says you are not stuck in traffic, you are traffic. How does this work? This works only if it's placed in the right place and people see it at the right moment. So you can imagine that if you are walking around in a nice park and you see this, it doesn't really catch your attention or anything. But if you read this while you are in a very crowded road and you are stuck in traffic and you're very stressed, and you see this and it offers you a solution to your problem, you actually are more likely to be persuaded and to give TomTom a go. This principle is called suggestion, which basically just means to deliver the right message to the user in the right context, in time and in space. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that technology can be very good at persuading us when it makes our tasks easier. Because whether or not we undertake an action depends on how difficult that action is for us, but also on how motivated we are to undertake that action. So it's something, this graph looks something like this. So it means that if a task is very difficult, we need to be very motivated or we will not undertake it. Therefore, if technology is good enough to reduce the difficulty of a task, we won't need to be that motivated, so it's more likely that we will actually act. So Waze is very good at putting together suggestion, which is the principle I explained before with the billboard, and reduction. Because how does it work? So Waze is a navigation system, I'm sure you all know. And basically, when you're driving nearby a McDonald's, you will see an advert popping up at the top of your phone that tells you that there is a McDonald's nearby. So it's very powerful because, of course, it's not advertising a restaurant that is kilometers away from you, but it's something that is almost already on the way home. Plus, it goes the extra mile because the application itself offers you to drive you there. So it makes your task so easy. You just press a button and Waze drives you to McDonald's. So even though you are putting on hold the original task that was getting wherever you were planning to go, but it's made so easier by the app that you don't really mind. Okay, so next dark pattern is friend spam. This happens when an interface uses your social network to email or share posts on your behalf to reach as many people as possible that are part of your network. An example is LinkedIn. So when you sign up to LinkedIn to create an account, at some point you are asked to enter again your email address, and it seems like a normal step, but actually if you read the grade part of the copy, you are asked to enter your email address to import all your contacts, basically. This is not that clear because the grade part of the copy is not really standing out, and also you might not notice that you can skip this step. So you just enter your email address and you don't realize that you are authorizing LinkedIn to access all your contacts. And the other evil thing of LinkedIn is that when you go on the page that suggests people that you may know, you are presented with people that may or may not be users of LinkedIn. And a lot of users don't even realize that. So these people that have as button connect are already users of LinkedIn. But the ones that are add to network are actually users that I know I have their email address because I imported it previously, but they are not using LinkedIn yet. So what I'm doing when I'm pressing on add to network, I'm actually emailing them and I'm suggesting them to start using LinkedIn. But it's not clear at all. It's clear if I read this invite to join LinkedIn, but the interface of the two cases is so similar that I'm not going to see the difference, and I'm going to spam my friends without even realizing. So how can we get people to talk about our product? How can we make them share with their friends and reach as many people as possible? I'm sure you've all seen interfaces like this. So you're navigating in a website and suddenly a pop-up stops your flow and you're just annoyed and you close it. So this is ethical, it's not a dark pattern, but for sure it's annoying, so I wouldn't recommend using this. There are better ways. For example, what Uber does. If you email a friend or you text a friend, and they actually end up using the application, you get £10 discount from your next ride. So this is an easy principle that is called reinforcement, and basically means that if you reward the user after they make a step towards the goal you want them to achieve, you reward them and they are more likely to do it again in the future. And the reward doesn't need to be monetary, because in this case, this is the website of this book called Webs of Influence, and if you tweet or share on one of your social network this page, you get a free chapter on your email. So this is not a monetary reward, but it's still something that motivates you to undertake the action. And then another principle that designers can use is public commitment. So when we want to achieve a goal, if we make our commitment public, so basically if we tell our friends, I want to achieve this goal, it's more likely for us to stick to it and to actually continue progressing. This is the case of all those fitness and running applications that after you run ask you if you want to share on Facebook, Twitter, and so on. So this is very good for the user, because the user, by sharing their achievement and their progress, they keep themselves motivated. So they are happy to do it, and they think they are just doing it for themselves. So they are almost grateful to the app for this functionality. And then at the same time, designers are happy because they get users to share stuff on their behalf. So basically they get advertisement for free. And of course, it's much more powerful when their friends see a person they know sharing using this application rather than if they see an advert on a newspaper or whatever. Okay, another dark pattern is misleading comparison. This is used when an interface wants to persuade you to select one option over other options. But to achieve that, they misinform you, or they present information in a very complicated way, so at the end you don't really know what you are deciding. So an example is taken from the British Airways. When you select a flight, you select where you want to go, you select the date, and then you end up on this page. And if you scroll down, you see that for each time, there are 3 options, and one is marked as lowest. Also, your attention is grabbed by that one because there is a yellow box around it. So you might think, okay, lowest, that's the cheapest, I'm going for that one. But then you look again and you're like, hold on, 241 is not the lowest, this is 103. So what does that mean? If you scroll up, you will then realize that this is the lowest price for business class, and this is the lowest price for economy, and so on. The problem is that once you scroll down, you completely lose the context, and it's not clear at all. So I don't think, connecting back to what Neil was saying at the beginning, this is probably not due to stupidity. This is a very clever way of modifying the interface and kind of confusing people. So you're not really you're not fully aware of what you're doing when you are selecting the lowest. Right, so how can designers influence the decision making of their users? Well, first of all, we need to know a couple of things about the decision making process. As human beings, we really like to have options. We like to be able to decide, we like our freedom. But if we have too many options, then we kind of can't decide because we are overwhelmed and we don't know what to do. So we work something like this. Our likelihood of taking action is something in the middle. We want some options, but not too many. And there is a nice research that was from 2000, in which some researchers compared the behavior of buyers in 2 different conditions. They measured the behavior of buyers in front of a stand with 6 jam jars or 24. And they noticed that people would stand by more when they had more options, but they actually ended up buying more when they had less options. This is because they like to browse, to look around, to see the options, but then if there are too many, they don't know which one to choose, and they end up not making a decision. So in this case, 6 flavors would be the optimal number, and 24 is not that good. But of course, numbers depend on context and on what's your product, so I'm not saying 6 is the number you need to have. Right, the other thing we need to bear in mind is that when we make a decision, no matter how rational we think that is, it's always starting with a subconscious decision. So there is something that appeals to our subconscious and we make a decision. But then, of course, we need to add to that some rational motivation. And only after that stage, we actually take the action. So this means that as designers, we need to be able to design for subconscious and for the conscious part of our brains. We need to appeal to the subconscious, and we need to provide information for the rational part. Okay, so to show some examples that achieve this, this is taken from Gather Content, which is a service that provides 3 different payment plans. So you have 3 options. You might not be very decided on which one to take. And then you notice that one of them is marked as the most popular. So it looks like a very small detail, but it's actually really powerful, because when we don't really know for which option to go, we rely a lot on the group of our peers. So just seeing most popular, it means that a lot of people like us decided to take that payment plan. So we are more inclined to go for it as well. Another option that you have is to use the principle called authority. So instead of saying the most popular choice, you just marked it as recommended, that it's recommended by you, because of course Spotify is not going to recommend you the free plan, right? But still, we are kind of stupid, and we kind of get tricked by these simple changes in the interface. But just by saying that it's recommended, we are more likely to choose that one. So I showed you some examples, and now I'm giving back to me.
So let's say you found yourself in a situation where you've either chosen to use a dark pattern, or you've identified one in your work, or someone's putting pressure on you to use a dark pattern in your work. Why would you then move to a more ethical alternative if you reckon that you're going to make the most money from this dark one, right? Well, it's not just about being a goody two-shoes. There are repercussions to using dark patterns you have to take into account. So the example we've been talking about for the whole of this talk, Ryanair, that interface is no longer on their website because last year they were fined €850,000 by an Italian antitrust authority for unfair ethical practices, which included that. If we look at the example of Scholastic, who used to use double negative checkboxes to make you sign up to a book club that you didn't know you were signing up to, they hid the terms from it, and they made it really difficult for you to cancel, which is that Roach Motel pattern Christina spoke about earlier. They were fined $710,000 by the Federal Trade Commission for those actions. And the LinkedIn example, which is still there, we assume is not as severe as it used to be. They had to pay $13 million out last year, about $10 to every person who was affected by it, which is a crazy amount of money. And you ask yourself why they did it in the first place. So you might be thinking, okay, right, I'm not LinkedIn. I'm not going to get fined $13 million. I work for a small company. Well, if you're at the other end of the spectrum, you have to think about how, when people cotton on to what you've done to them, when they figure out they've been had, what are they going to think of your business? So there are a few aspects of credibility, of what people assess the worth of your company based on. First of all, there's the operator. That's you. That's your reputation. It's just what people know you for. Next is the content, and that's your product, and it's how different it is from your competitors and how much value they get out of it. Then comes the design, and that's the way that it's delivered, and how easy it is for them to get that service, how pleasant it is for them to receive that service. All of these things added together, and I should say each of these contributes to the trustworthiness of your brand. They have to pass a minimum threshold if they're going to deal with you. If you don't get up here, they're going to go somewhere else. So you can see how Ryanair, they're a household name. The operator's huge. They've got their content, the flights, they're rock bottom. You can't get any cheaper. Nobody can beat them. They can afford, or could afford, to have poor design that the delivery could have a little bit of deception in it, because you're still going to deal with them. You're going to suck it up and do it because you know that this flight's still going to be cheaper than going anywhere else. But if you're a little company, like you're not a household name, but you're doing pretty well, your product's pretty good, you can't afford to be doing horrible, unpleasant ways of getting people to do stuff, because they're just going to go somewhere else. They're going to find someone else who has another combination of these traits where they're willing to deal with them still. So, look for dark patterns in your work. It might just happen. It might be something that was unwilling, you did it by accident. It might be that someone's putting pressure on you to do it. Be aware of it. Think about if it was something deliberate, if it's something you're doing to be persuasive or deceptive, is it something you're doing out of good intentions, and is it something that we can plot on the benefit chart? Where does it come out? Does it come out the evil end, of the charitable end? We've shown you some examples today of how there are ethical alternatives to some of the most common patterns. There are books out there that have lots of patterns. Open one up, have a look at a different way of solving the same problem. There might be a more honest way of accomplishing the same goal. And finally, be ready to advocate within your own company for moving away from these dark patterns to something more ethical. Remember that it's not just a case of being fined or getting in trouble for it. It's a case of, can your business still sustain itself when people understand what your true motives are. Here are some of the resources that we used for preparing this talk. BGFog, Persuasive Technology, is basically the bottom line on persuasion. He's written the most about it. You'll see him referenced everywhere. A couple of the graphs came from his work. 100 things every designer needs to know about people. Based in psychology, there's just loads of little tips, funny little quirks of the mind that you can hopefully not take advantage of, but bear in mind in your work to make things more appealing. I'm not going to pronounce his name because I'll pronounce it wrong, but Hooked is about building habits. When you get someone into your product, how can you keep them using it and make it still valuable to them going forward, rather than just like not letting them leave. Evil by Design may be the best collection we've found of many patterns in one place. I think there's like 57 patterns. Just be wary when you're reading this book. He doesn't differentiate between evil and good. He just lays them all out there, and as we've shown today, the way that you use them can make it good or bad, so you have to assess it yourself. And Harry Brignall has this website, Dark Patterns, which you can go to. It's got some examples of some really common ones. So if you think that you might be doing something other people have fallen for before, go and see if it's there. Thank you.